Well, this wild political season here in Georgia, it is far from over. Last night was primary election night. Crowded fields in a lot of these races, winnowing down on the Republican side in the gubernatorial contest. The two top vote getters, Rick Jackson and Burt Jones, are headed to a runoff 4 weeks from now. On the Democratic side, that is not the case. Former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms won outright last night, clearing that 50% vote threshold and immediately becoming the Democratic Party's nominee for governor. Our Joe Ripley sat down with Keisha Lance Bottoms just a few hours ago to ask her about her campaign and what comes next. Here is that interview.
Okay, we're here. You made it. No runoff required. Outright winning the Democratic nomination for governor of Georgia. Where's your head at today?
1, 2, 1, 2.
You know, I said last night, the grace of God is sufficient. So I'm thankful for God's grace just in getting us to this point. I know that faith without works is dead, so we did the work. We ran through the tape, running like we were 30 points behind, not 30 points ahead, talking, listening, most importantly, to people around the state, and it paid off. So we're just taking a deep breath and regrouping as you have to do going into a general election, but I'm very grateful that we get this head start. As on the other side, they continue to battle it out for first place with Trump. We get to keep focusing on the voters and speaking directly to them about what matters most to them.
To see such an explosive head start and the connection you made with voters, what do you think made the difference for you with so many other candidates in the race?
You know, we didn't take anybody for granted. I can't speak to what the approach was from other campaigns, but I know for us it was about taking our case directly to the people, to putting on the blinders, blocking the noise, and focusing on the voters and what mattered to them. And what we heard consistently around this state were issues around the cost of living, around housing, utility costs, lack of access to health care, the cost of health care, support for small businesses, support for veterans, concerns about education and lack of funding in education. Those were consistent issues. The starting points for solutions may vary from community to community, but at the end of the day, we all want the same things. And that's to live in communities that are thriving. And I think our willingness to listen and to offer what we believe would be tangible and doable solutions for these issues really resonated with voters.
I think a lot of people drew some conclusions about your performance here in Fulton County, Metro Atlanta, but you did some numbers on the coast. You did some numbers in Augusta and other parts of the state. Why do you think your message resonated so much with those voters?
Yeah, and I haven't seen the final numbers. Late last night, I believe I won every county with the exception of one county, I believe. But again, listening to people and taking our case directly to the people. You know, you can splice it up however you want to fit whatever narrative you want, but at the end of the day, we had a resounding victory. And in this race, the people of Georgia had an opportunity to speak and an opportunity to show that no matter where you are, rural community, urban community, your one vote still counts the same. And I'm grateful for the overwhelming support that we received across the state.
Why are you personally in this race?
For me, it really was about waking up after the last presidential election and praying about what I'd be called to do in this season. And I knew it would be a time to be uncomfortable again, get back in the ring and go to battle on behalf of people of this state. I led through the first Trump administration, so I know what it takes to be able to lead through the chaos, and I know what the people in this state need in this moment, and I want to be able to deliver for people. even in the midst of all the uncertainty and chaos, at my core, I have a heart for service. And when people need help, I want to be able to do what I can do to stand in the gap and help deliver, and that's why I'm running.
Your opponents on the other side of the aisle have criticized you for how you led the city of Atlanta during the tumult, the racial unrest, the pandemic, whether to open, whether to not open, with Republican leadership in the state at the time. Do you stand by how you led the city through that time, and what do you say to your critics?
When I left the city of Atlanta, my approval ratings were at 68%. So the people of Atlanta approved. What I would say is it was a tough time, not just in Atlanta, but across the state, across the globe. We made decisions that helped us fare way better than a lot of other places. I left the city with 4 years of a balanced budget with $180 million in the bank. We delivered 7,000 units of affordable housing. We created a trust fund, or a savings account for all of our kindergartners. We created an affordable housing trust fund for people citywide. So there were lots of things that I was proud of. Historic pay raises for our first responders in the city. If you are a leader with any sense of self-awareness, you'll always think back about what you did and what you can do better in the future. But I can tell you every decision I made was what I thought to be the best decision at that time. And with my leadership, we fared better than most cities did.
This will mark the third time that Georgia Democrats have nominated a black woman for governor. What does that tell you about where the state is as history could be made, not only here in Georgia, but statewide if you're elected in November?
Yeah, I mean, you can't ignore the historical moment because it's not happened often. But I would just say this is about leadership right now and who's going to best deliver. History will write itself. So I'm not focused on that part of it. Personally, I'm very aware of just my story in the state, descending from people who were once enslaved in on a plantation in Crawfordville, Georgia. So I'm very much aware of who I am and how I came to be here. But at the end of the day, it's just about being a strong leader. And the fact that I'm a black woman is something that I'm proud of, but I don't think that people are looking to cast a vote for history. They're looking to cast a vote for somebody who's going to work on their behalf. And that's the case that I'm making to people across the state.
You draw a contrast, I think, between yourself and President Trump and the people trying to chase after his endorsement, his praise. You will be on the ballot with Jon Ossoff. There is a target on his and your backs at the moment, with Republicans trying to claw back power in this state. We've got redistricting ahead of us here in a special session, and Republicans still maintaining control of the state legislature. How do you wade into those waters trying to convince Georgians that you are the answer, that you can work with people not just who believe like you and think like you, and ultimately lead them in the future?
I wouldn't have been able to get anything done as mayor of Atlanta without working with people who were different from me. One of my biggest allies I found over at the state capitol was the late David Ralston, Speaker of the House. What I always appreciated about this Republican leader from Blue Ridge was that I knew exactly where he stood. We agreed on the things we could agree on, and those things we couldn't, we had a civil conversation about it and respectfully agreed to disagree. That's what we got to do to be able to get things done. We're not going to agree on everything, even within our party. we're not going to agree on everything. But on those things that we can work together on, we need to lean in and get it done. And there's so many issues that transcend party lines, that transcend rural communities and urban cities. These universal issues that matter to people. I really believe we can get some great things done in this state, like expanding Medicaid. That helps everybody in this state. When we offer a pre-K spot for every 4-year-old whose family wants them to attend, that helps everybody in this state. When we are able to provide affordable and workforce housing, that helps everybody in this state. When we can support small businesses and our veterans, that helps everybody in the state.
My last one for you. You don't have a runoff to look forward to in June, but you still have some hurdles. What do you think is your biggest challenge, and how do you respond to it in this race?
The biggest challenge will likely be resources, but I'm not going to even put that on the table. I just say likely just because Republicans are putting in millions of dollars of their own fortune. But at the end of the day, the power still rests with the people, even with the millions of dollars that they put in personally on the other side, trying to curry favor with Trump. We still outvoted them in this race. Democrats did. So I'm going to put the people up against the money any day of the week. The power still rests with the people.
All right, so a big night in politics here in Georgia. Keisha Lance Bottoms moving on to the general election. Faith Jesse joining us now. Faith and I had a long night last night following all these results.
The bags
well, I'm not even going to do it. I have
packed
makeup
on Mac.
You look great. That's the evidence of I got to moisturize more probably is what I need. Faith, we both just watched that interview with former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Yeah.
What stood out to you from that race as we watched it unfold in real time last night?
I think the first part was just how humble her demeanor was. The line that she said, we campaigned as if we were 30 points behind, not 30 points ahead, says a lot about her campaign. And it is evident in what we saw during this campaign. She was the front runner the entire time. The only other front runner, if you look at the polling, were the undecided voters that had more percentage than she did over the other candidates. But even the other candidates playing pretty nicely during this race compared to what we saw on the other side of the aisle with the Republicans. But the idea was always that former Mayor Bottoms was going to take that lead, who was going to be in that second place position, and who would have the best chance trying to beat her in a runoff. It was never about, is she going to be in the lead? The surprise that everybody did not see coming, maybe her campaign saw it coming, was her winning outright. It's something that she said that she wanted to do. She took a commanding lead at the very beginning, just shortly after 7 p.m. after those numbers started coming out. 9 p.m. when Fulton County elections said that we're not putting out any numbers until 11. A lot of people said, okay, we're going to wait and see because that could be a determining factor as she led a large part of Fulton County as mayor of Atlanta and had mixed reviews during her leadership. But the race was called before those numbers even came out.
And avoiding that runoff in such a crowded field, too, of other serious contenders who raised money. They were up on air with television ads, and they campaigned for months across the state. And former DeKalb CEO and Labor Commissioner Mike Thurmond, former State Senator Jason Estevez, and former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan. He was a Republican when he was Lieutenant Governor, but he had a significant profile as well going into this race. A lot of people thought with that many candidates, it would be very difficult to get over that 50% threshold, but she did it. She, as you pointed out, right off the jump, 7 o'clock, results started coming in. She was in the lead, and it stayed that way through the entire night.